What's going on, everybody? Thanks for those joining me live and to those that'll be joining me on archive. DStyleBoxing here. I'm not sure if you're going to be hearing from me for a couple more days because it's a holiday tomorrow. Not that I celebrate the historical context of Thanksgiving, but I do spend time with family, right? I'll just say that. Also, no Q&A tomorrow, guys. It's Thanksgiving, so I'm not going to be doing that. I'll be with family and stuff. And the weekend, I'm not sure yet. Okay, I'm not sure yet, although I really wanted to do a Shabransky breakdown, okay, of his fight with Kovalev, but unfortunately, I don't know if I'll get there. But just quick, this is my prediction in case I don't get to the video really quick. So I got Kovalev winning by knockout, okay, in under 5 rounds. But I'm like, I really want Shabransky to win. Like, I don't know why. I think the guy's growing on me. He's kind of become a staple of the DStyleBoxing channel, all right? So just wanted to say that right off the bat, okay, right out of the gate. Let's get that out of the way. Quick disclosure. Let me give my thoughts on this really quick before I jump into the chat. Okay, I don't want to be redirected by anything. So, and it's something I always do in every video I make. Right, just saying that right out of the gate. Look, this Undisputed versus Lineal thing. First of all, I think this is a good debate. Right, I think it's a good discussion, and it's good. Right, and that's great. Now, here's my only thing. All right, I'm not going to make a lot of people happy with my stance on this. I'm just not. All right. Let me first say that, and of course, this stems from a video that I listened to part of it, and then I went back and listened to some more of it today, and then I kind of jumped in later. This is Dan the Man's channel, but I want to say this. Okay, there's a lot of things to touch on here. First of all, let's address what's better in my opinion, okay, being the Lineal champion or the Undisputed champion, all right? I think this is my opinion, by definition, when you're Undisputed champion, maybe not in all cases, right? Because I know there's been cases where guys collected all the belts, like Tyson, for example, but Spinks was considered Lineal. I get that. But in most cases, when you're Undisputed, you're really, in essence, creating a lineage, I guess you can say, right? And in many cases, these Lineal champions, as you go back, it usually falls under some type of unification or someone being an Undisputed champion, all right? So I think it's just one of those things. A lineage is somewhat of a fading star because guys can retire undefeated. They can move up in weight class. Where Undisputed is more like a supernova being created. Okay, it's this new star in creation. And I'm not talking star in terms of popularity. I'm giving you a metaphor out of the heavens here, out of the universe. But it's to me, outside of the few exceptions, and we have to acknowledge that there are exceptions, in most cases, being the Undisputed champion, I would say about 99% of the time, is better than being a Lineal champion. It's just, and that's my opinion, all right? Because like I said, when you go back, let's say, for example, the topic was always Adonis Stevenson. Okay, we went from Adonis Stevenson to like all this other shit, which is great. I think it's great. But okay, who did Adonis Stevenson beat? Shad Dawson, right? Now Shad Dawson, while he did lose at 168 to Ward, didn't lose at 175, but it is in the back of our head though that he got knocked out in that fight with Ward. Like, we can't erase that from our memory, but But nonetheless, Shad Dawson had defeated, Bernard Hopkins. And then you have to ask, well, who did Bernard Hopkins beat? And it becomes this constant, because remember, Bernard Hopkins, yes, beat Pascal, right? We know that. Well, who did Pascal beat to beat Lineal? Because remember, Joe Calzaghe retired after he defeated Bernard Hopkins. I mean, Bernard Hopkins is the guy that beat, Tarver, right? But if we fast forward, Calzaghe retired, so that Lineal ship, was a fading star. It faded away. All right, so Pascal became, I guess fought Dawson, and he defeated Dawson, and then they said he was Lineal champion. In what way did he become a Lineal champion? It's I understand where the lineage comes from. It's not that I don't understand that, but in what way does it make Andre Ward collecting the belts, and fighting Kovalev? How does that? How does the linealship of Adonis Stevenson, like I understand there's a lineal, I understand that, right? But Adonis Stevenson wasn't the one that did all that. That was just a process that happened. Where when you become Undisputed, that's something you did. All right, that's something you accomplished yourself. You did not inherit that accomplishment simply by beating one individual. And that's why in most cases, I consider Undisputed more prestigious or better than a lineal champion. Now, that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge a lineal champion. And that doesn't mean that we can't be objective and analyze a situation and say, well, yeah, he collected Fighter A collected all the belts, but those were some weak champions, while the lineal champion, defeated, this is just an example, a very difficult opponent to become lineal champion and has defended that lineal title against top contenders who, let's say you perceive, are better than the guys that the other dude collected the belts from. That's a scenario that can happen, right? But that does require objectivity. But in most cases, if we have all the belts get collected, all right, let's put the talks of politics aside just for a moment. If we were to do this universally in every division, right, if we were to collect the belts in all divisions, in essence, you would be starting, okay, a new lineal champion in each weight class. Yes, from there the belts would be separated. But remember, the star can die. It can fade away into stardust. And we have to create a new supernova. And that's the reason for collecting the belts. And that is a necessary evil, I guess we can call it, with the current circumstance that boxing is at this very moment. Not this very time. I was going to say this very time, but at this very moment. In a perfect scenario, in a perfect world, I would prefer one title, one champion, hell, fewer weight classes. Okay, but I understand I'm not going to get that. But as a boxing fan, I want to point the arrow. I want to point it towards the direction of Undisputed. Right? Because while I understand, look, I'm not naive to the reality that the sanctioning bodies are corrupt. I'm not naive to the reality that we have some guys out there with straps that really really shouldn't have a strap. They're not really, I understand that the 4th champion doesn't necessarily mean the top 4 in the division, right? I get that, right? But in most cases it does. Not always, but in most cases it does. There are guys with belts that are credible champions. So it's not all universal, right? But if we point the arrow towards, hey, then how do you weed out the guy with a belt that should not have that belt? How do you do that? You force him to fight the other credible guys with belts. That's what you do. Okay, that's how you weed out that person. Okay, so that's, to me, that's what we have to do, right? So when it comes to talk about Lineal and all that, it's, to me, the issue is, where does it start? Okay, and how strong is that linealship? Like, how strong is it? In some cases, a guy's called a lineal champion, but the roots of that title isn't exactly that strong. In some cases, it is. Okay, in some cases, it is. Now, I personally don't understand. Like, I'm not someone who's necessarily gonna, and this is where I say someone who's siding with me may kind of back up a little now, and I get that. I don't necessarily believe that collecting all 4 belts, in some cases, this is not, this is where we got to listen, right? I would prefer that they get collected in every division. And I understand the politics. I understand that they're going to be taken away and all that, right? But to me, it's about starting that linealship. Okay, to me, it's all intertwined. To me, it's all connected together. While I understand that, it's in some cases because of, and I put them aside a moment ago, but let's put them back. Let's put them back in the argument, because of politics, because of guys that just flat out don't want to fight other guys, right? In some cases, someone has to be rewarded undisputed, even when their opponents, even if they don't have all 4 belts. If they have 3 of the belts, and the one champion, if we're objective and we see that one of the champions is weak, right, and does not want to fight that, the guy with the 3 belts that we all know is the man, then at that point you can. I would prefer that they actually have to fight for the title, right? I would prefer that they do unify. That's my preference. That's what I'm going to push for. That's where I want the arrow pointing towards. But in some cases, I acknowledge that maybe it just can't happen due to politics or whatever reason, right? So acknowledging that it may not always happen, I still want the arrow pointing towards that direction, towards unifying all the championships. There's no reason to stop unifying. Like, it's not like it's once we unify, that's it. Now what do we do? Boxing is it's like a wheel. It keeps turning. That's all boxing does. It's just an ever revolving wheel. It doesn't stop. So that's where I want the arrow pointing. Now, saying that, like I said, I would prefer that we get rid of as many, the more sanctioning bodies we get rid of, the better, all right? But when you unify, okay, in essence what that does, okay, in my opinion, it prevents more fraudulent champions from actually being out there, right? The less fraudulent champion, there's always going to be fraudulent champions, but the less of them that they're out there, the better, all right? And the way you do that is you unify the championships. That's my thoughts on that, right? That's my opinion on that. That's what I think about that. All right, let's see here. Let's see if I can pull this up really quick. Now, let's talk about another thing really quick, because this shit's taking forever to load. Let's talk about hindsight. Right, let's talk about hindsight for a moment, right? And this is a topic I really want to bring up. This is the Ndongo thing, right? When it comes to Ndongo, right? Everybody's using hindsight. Look, guys, when you predict a boxing fight, right? If you've been predicting long enough, because like me, like in my channel, I control which fights I put predictions for, and so do you guys, right? Everybody in the comment section, okay, everybody that's a YouTuber of any way, shape, or form, you pick and choose which fights you, out of your interest, right? And I do too, by the way. I'm not pointing fingers here. We pick and choose which fights we predict. Okay, we pick and choose which fights we want to, say I think so and so is going to win this, that, and the third, right? We don't sit down and actually predict every single boxing fight on the planet. Like, we just don't. All right. So when you get a prediction right, you know that's not really validation, right? It's not like so. So what I mean by that is, just because you predicted that Ndongo was going to get beat by Terrence Crawford, it doesn't mean it validates your opinion that Ndongo is a complete fraud and a fake and just wasn't any good. That's not what that means. That just means that you didn't really go out on the limb and you made the safe bet like I did and picked Terrence Crawford to win. That's all that means. Okay, like you picked the favorite to win the fight, right? But that doesn't in any way, shape, or form mean that Ndongo. Okay, yes, of course, we could go back and use 20/20 vision and say, well, look, he lost to, Terrence Crawford. He got embarrassed in a couple rounds. We told you he didn't belong in the ring. Terrence Crawford wasted his time fighting this guy. I mean, at the end of the day, here's the reality, right? Let's say Crawford never fought Ndongo. Let's just say it never happened, right? Let's say Crawford just said, "Nah, peace. I'm done. I'm going to move up to 147." Hypothetically, let's say that's the scenario, right? Now, would most people be giving Crawford a hard time about that? No, not at all, right? Now, I'll be honest, what I've been saying, hey, you should have collected that belt. You've been undisputed champion. I would, yes. But I acknowledge that maybe not most people would have done that because, not everybody had Ndongo up there like that. But would some have questioned Crawford moving up and not fighting Ndongo, who was a unified champion? Would some have done that? And the answer is yes, right? So there the term undisputed, okay, comes about, right? Lineal is champion is more like a consensus thing. It's like a majority of boxing pundits and fans acknowledge fighter A, being the man and the champion. Undisputed means you're the man, point blank, period, asterisk in most cases. Right? So I just want to make that clear. Like, it's not up to opinion. You don't need a consensus. Now everybody knows Crawford destroyed Ndongo. It's without question. It's without debate. And he was undisputed at 140, point blank, period, without question. Whereas before, when 90% of people have been saying, Crawford would beat him anyway, it didn't matter. Let's say, and I'm being very generous, putting 90%, right? Or maybe not even being generous. That's probably pretty accurate. But if just 10% of people would have been saying, oh, man, I think Crawford ducked Ndongo. He could have fought him. Ndongo was willing to fight him in his hometown. There must be a reason why Crawford didn't fight Ndongo. Why wouldn't he want to have collected those belts? If just 10% of people would have said that, all right, then that's what separates undisputed, right? Okay, that's what separates consensus thinking to undisputed fact, right? No, talking of underdogs. So let me put it this way. What Frankie Randall, okay, now this is Frankie Randall when he pulled the upset against Julio Cesar Chavez, all right? Julio Cesar Chavez was considered the man in his division at that point, all right, at 140. Let's say Chavez would have said, nah, I don't got to prove shit. I don't got to fight Frankie Randall. What does Frankie Randall have to offer me? Would the majority and consensus today be saying, well, I mean, come on. Frankie Randall wouldn't have beaten Chavez. The answer is yes. The consensus would have been saying, all right, that Chavez never had to fight Frankie Randall. Frankie Randall was a big underdog. But what happened? Frankie Randall pulled the upset. The consensus was wrong. The consensus was wrong. If Chavez would have gone in there and knocked out Frankie Randall in a couple rounds, everybody would have been playing Monday morning quarterback saying, well, he didn't even have to fight that guy. What's the point of fighting that guy? Right? Now, granted, I understand that Chavez fought a lot of guys that you wonder, why did he fight that guy? Okay, but let's put that aside for a moment. I'm just using the Frankie Randall example, okay, as a, not to repeat myself, but as an example. Okay, I got the chat up. Finally got the chat up. Holy shit. The truth, what's up? DStyleBoxing here says hot blow type. 99 times out of 100, Undisputed will beat Lineal. In other cases, Undisputed starts with its own lineage. If Tyson ever fought Spinks, his line would be the one. I agree with that. If the Spinks fight never happened, right? And in a way, let's put the belts aside for a moment. It's all about a claim, guys. Your claim to be a champion, whether it's a strap, whether it's a trinket, okay, whether it's a title, and I don't mean title in terms of an actual physical belt, but just being called you're the lineal champ. In essence, it's about everyone with a claim to the title of champion, right? It's when you can beat everybody who's making that relevant claim, right? That's what, when you beat everybody that's making a relevant claim, that's what makes you undisputed, right? You see, one is based on consensus, and I'm not saying consensus doesn't matter, right? But leaving it without any doubt whatsoever, to me, logically, is better than what 95% of people think I'm the best. See, there's a difference. And by the way, I'm throwing 95% up there, just to kind of give put it in perspective, but, that's what I'm saying. But to Haplotype's point, Tyson was undisputed with the titles, and he became like true undisputed when he beat Spinks, right? But whether he fought Spinks or not, that would have been the lineage. That's where it would have started, through Undisputed. Undisputed is the supernova that gives birth, okay? All right, that's a star, a big star in the sky, by the way, guys, right? Like, I don't know, I really don't know. What is it, 100 times larger than the sun? Whatever. All right, let's move on. Then, man, what up, DStyle? Lopez has challenged you to debate. Will you accept? Look, man, well, first of all, I want to know what the debate is. That's number one, okay? Another thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to, look, does he want to debate or does he want to pop quiz me, right? Because if Lopez wants to play pop quiz, then I'll write down some pop quiz questions I want to ask him too, because I'm not going to do this pop quiz thing. Like, I'm going to talk, I'm going to make my points, then he can make his points, and then we could go from there, right? But when I'm talking, he will not interrupt. And in turn, I will not interrupt when he is talking. If he's hearing something he doesn't like, right? Now here's the thing about Lopez. I think he thinks I picked zone winning the debate or something like that. That's not what I did, right? I was simply critiquing, and that's all I did. Sometimes, let me be honest. And then I've been on your live hangouts before, right? And you know that when I feel strongly about something, I don't care if I'm in the minority or the majority, and whatever the case is, I will give my opinion on said thing. So I've been on panels where I actually agree with Lopez, and I disagreed with Dan the Man live on the air, right? Or whoever else was in the panel. And I've said, hey, Lopez just made a good point, right? So I'm not going to say, but sometimes I feel like Lopez makes a good point. But when someone starts countering his point, he starts to interrupt. And that could come off as filibustering, and it kind of is. And when you want to give him points in a debate, then, you kind of feel like, well, he keeps interrupting the person that is debating him. So how can I even judge this debate? You know, and I kind of feel like he makes a point. When someone starts to counter the point, he interrupts, and because he wants to reinforce his point in the middle of somebody else making his point, right? So I'm not critiquing his opinion on this matter. I respect his opinion on the whole lineal title thing. I understand that there's for the most part a disagreement, right? But I honestly feel like he needs to have the courtesy of letting the other individual finish their point, right? If the person really is saying something that doesn't make sense, then let them bury themselves. There's no reason to jump in and just, take over their time, because then how can we score points for you in the debate when you keep doing that, right? So I haven't even said who I thought won a debate. All I'm saying is I don't like his approach and the way he constantly interrupts. That's my thoughts on that. If he wants to do that in his channel, then he can do that. That's his channel. But when you're on somebody else's channel and you agree that it's a one-on-one debate, then to me, you have to let the other guy speak, right? And I'm not into this whole ambush question thing. Like, let me ask you this, and if you don't have an answer, 3 seconds, and then you don't know what you're talking about, I'm not into that at all, right? A lot of us watch a lot of boxing. We may not remember things off the top of our head right away. Okay, so I'm not into this pop quiz thing. But what I am into is this is a broad discussion, right? The undisputed lineal thing is a broad discussion that pertains to all of boxing, not individual situations. Okay, and knowing who beat who in their first title defense, or who he beat for the title, while could be relevant, is something that the person making the point should bring up and explain why it's relevant. That's just my opinion, but there you go. But I'm all for discussing whatever regarding boxing with anybody. I think anybody knows that. So let me see here. Easier is lazy and not better, says Haplotype. I think Haplotype is discussing with Red Fox. Well, there you go. Man, and Waterlino is not perfect, but it's better than having to force guys like Joseph Parker to sell the belt. There you go. Black Lad, Undisputed versus Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Lineal. A really nice Dodge Charger with a Hemi. In most cases, Haplotype Zero, DStyle, the guys who back Lineal are always trying to argue for a fighter who's ducking. So to me, it is a lame ass argument. Red Fox, Holmes never unified, but he's great. He's great than any unified title today. Haplotype Lineal is a Model T. Red Fox, so much. How does unified mean? All right, DStyle, he was debate on you on this topic. Well, we'll see. As I said at the very beginning of this video, I'm going to be very busy this week, bro. But this weekend we could work something out. Like I said, and here's the thing, like when it comes to me debating somebody, there's going to be set rules from jump. So I'm just saying that right now, right? So, and what I mean by that is a moderator will enforce, and then the man could be the moderator. A moderator will enforce the time talking, all right? The people making their points will simply make their points, all right? Counterpoints will be allowed to be made, and it's going to be timed, okay? And at a certain time, the debate's going to end, and that's it, right? While it is a broad discussion, it doesn't require an hour of discussing. Like, you know what I mean? It just doesn't. So we can always do that, that's not a problem. But it's going to be structured. It's going to be a structured debate, right? And we're going to have a structured discussion, and he's going to have to zip it while I talk, and that's it. And in return, I'm going to zip it when he talks, all right? And that's it. Like, it's going to be that simple. Haplotype, that's the debate. Lineal versus Undisputed is no contest. Lineal versus Unified is another subject, but I take Unified over Lineal. Just Haplotype, that one's tough, bro. Red Fox, to control the jump-ins. Red Fox, Holmes was never Undisputed nor Unified, but people knew he was the man. Yeah, but when Holmes was fighting, bro, we didn't have this mess. You know what I mean? And yes, I understand it was technically more than one title out there. Like, I get all that. But it wasn't the mess that we have today. You know, and I kind of hate when people try to, and I'm not saying Red Fox, but I kind of hate when people try to draw a parallel with yesteryear and today. Like, today is bad, man. Today is as bad as it's ever been. And we have a bunch of number one contenders out there, and it's crazy. They don't even call them number one contenders anymore because they're too embarrassed to call them number one contenders. They call them mandatories, right? Because they know they can't call them number one contender. All right, let's see. Black Latin. Seems like an easy debate just as long as you both get a chance to talk. It's pretty easy debate for Unified Champ. Pretty easy. Holmes, not that greatest man in water. I think Holmes was great. Well, I don't know. I disagree with Haplotype there. I think Holmes, man, Holmes is one of the best to ever do it, bro. One of the best jabs I ever seen. All right. Severn is the greatest number one contender of his era. Joke of the day. Award goes to Red Fox. All right. Unbelievable. All right, let's see here. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know what else to add, guys. I think I addressed most of what you guys put in the chat, and I gotta go run some errands. I want to wish you guys happy Thanksgiving, all that, and spend time with families. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. Be safe out there, and remember, it's only boxing. This is DStyleBoxing, and guys, keep it boxing. I'm out.